it is changing how close our seat is to our nozzle or balance valve, right? So when you twist this in, you can see it's making that, my balance valve would be here, it's making it closer, my seat nozzle, it's making it closer, it's bringing me closer to that. If I take the sensitivity out, it's pushing it further away from that. So basically what that's doing is you have your balance valve or your seat nozzles, and then you have your seat, and it's, as the sense pressure changes, that whole shaft is moving up and down, you know, sense pressure increases, it moves up, decreases, move out. So what we're doing with the sensitivity is, if we are too far away on our sensitivity, if I have that too far out, my nozzles are, my seats are out here. For me to start acting on that, I have to push all the way down, so my set point is increasing, but I'm moving and I'm moving and I'm moving, and I finally hit that to start making the valve react. And then it's the opposite, you know, when my sense pressure decreases, I gotta go the other way. So it really changes your set point. So if you set at 185, it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna start reacting, but I'm way out here. So by the time I get down there, I might be, you know, I might be 195, you know, 200 by the time I start making that valve react. And now I'm going over set point, and it's like, oh, okay, let me go back. But again, now I gotta go all the way back. So it's gonna make you have that big swing. It's gonna make it go up and down, up and down, up and down. If I bring it in too close, it'll make it more sensitive, right? But if I bring it in too close, I'm gonna be right on those balance valves. And yeah, it's gonna work, but it's gonna be a constant heavy bleed out of your pilot. So when we set that sensitivity or deadband, we set it so we are gonna be just right on those nozzles, just right on it. So a little movement either way is gonna give me that reaction time that I want. So that's the way we're gonna set it. And we say no bleed, but when we do it, we're actually gonna see that when I'm at that set point, I want just a tiny little bit. Because when I'm at set point, we should be doing nothing. Both balance valves should be closed. I should be doing nothing. So we want it so just a little bit either way, I'm gonna get my reaction. So that's how we're gonna set it. So that's what the sensitivity and the deadband does. So when Rob rebuilds what he does, he now has to go through the set procedure to put in the set point. So every one of these, it's all about balance. We are going to balance the gauge pressure. That's how we're gonna know that we are at set point. If you haven't done them in a while again, get the manual out, because everyone balances with gauge pressure, but they're a little bit different for each model. So the model that Rob is doing, when we're setting the set point, we are gonna set it so the output gauge is stationary anywhere between 0 and full power gas, but not 0 and full power gas. So when we set that, we're gonna turn our set point, we're gonna have a false sense of pressure on it. We're gonna turn our set point screw in. Now once we get that gauge to be anywhere between full power gas and 0 power gas, and we get that screw set to where that gauge isn't rising or falling, that's set point. Not sensitive, you know, now we still have sensitivity and deadband adjustment to do, but that's set point. So when we balance the gauge, on this pilot here, this is a double acting pilot. I'm gonna set this so my gauges balance at full power gas. Okay? Again, after I get them balanced, theoretically, I'm at set point, but I do have to verify my deadband and sensitivity, so we'll go through that part also. And then on the CH design, the one that has the seat nozzle, definitely gonna need the book for that one, because there is a formula for where you want to make that balance. And so it will just ask you, do you want it to balance, are you venting to atmosphere or venting to a system? Are you using volume boosters or are you not using volume boosters? Generally, when I see the CHs, they're using volume boosters. So for that formula, it says you are gonna balance the gas at 25% of your power gas. typical power gas that I see is 125 pounds. So on a CH, I'm gonna make it so both of those balance at 25 PSI. And then I'm at set point. I have to remind myself which one is which. So when we go through the setting procedure, I don't touch these every day either, so I usually do a quick review to make sure that the pilot I'm setting it the way the factory wants me to set it. So a quick review of the manual. So when we do these, the manual is going to tell you that you're going to take your tension off of your spring, apply the appropriate power gas, and this one says it's 100 PSI power gas, and then apply your false sense of pressure. And now you usually do this after you do a rebuild, you're gonna put it back on your pipe. You wanna make sure that before you're going through this setting process, you isolate yourself. So every pilot should have an isolation valve, a block valve, that you have to close. Couple of reasons you have to close it. First of all, you want to make sure that valve is isolated, so as you're doing things, you're not opening and closing that valve. So you want to make sure whatever you're doing is not going to affect your system. And then the other reason we're going to want to close this is because of our balancing, and I'll show you when we get into it. Because I want to balance these gauges. So if I left those valves open and I tried to do it live, if I left these valves open and they are going right to the cylinder, I have all that tubing and all that volume of the cylinder that I'm trying to fill or vent to get these to balance. It'll take forever and you'll never do it. So by closing these valves, I'm now isolating that. So now all I have to worry about is this little bit of volume that's right here in this space right here. So, and that little piece of tubing that goes up here. That's all I have to worry about. If you leave that open, you'll never get it to set the right way. So, again, read the manual, because we're gonna get to a point now on this one, add the sense pressure. So I got approximately 185, so I put my false sense pressure in, I have my spring unloaded, I have my proper power gas. Now it's going to tell you to set the sensitivity drum to a base. So on this model, it's going to say turn your sensitivity drum all the way to the left, and then until it stops, and then go back one full turn to the right. You'll notice on here that there are numbers. The numbers mean nothing other than they are a reference point. So on this one, a 5, maybe a 7. They just put a sticker on here to give you a visual reference point. So when you're setting this, so if I go all the way to the right on one, you know, and this is like a 5. So I'll go all the way back and turn until it's back to 5. But now if I go all the way to the right on another one, it might be a 3, it might be a 10. It's just a sticker that they put on there. So it's just to give you a reference point. So just because you set one at a 5 on one, doesn't mean it's a 5 on the other. That's all it is for reference. Another reason, again, you want to familiarize yourself with the CH version, the one that uses the seat nozzle. It will tell you before you turn that drum, and it does tell you in bold print, before you turn that sensitivity drum, to make sure that you have the sensing pressure, the power gas, and a little bit of spring tension on there. Otherwise, you could damage the seat, possibly damage the seat. So that's why it's important. The one Rob's working at, and the CH design, in the manual, they'll tell you to go all the way to the right and back to the left one. On this one, it's to the left and back to the right. So I'm going to take the sensitivity drum, go all the way to the left. It's at about a 9. So now I'm going to go back to the right, one turn until I get back to the 9. That is my base setting. That's my base setting for the sensitivity. So now we're going to turn this in. We're going to turn our set screws until I get both of these to balance at the same point anywhere. So again, that's what the manual will tell me. So I'm going to turn that in until I see my gauges balance. Okay, so I got them pretty much balanced right there. Then it's going to tell me to change my sensitivity until both of them are balanced at full power gas. So when I had them balanced, I'm pretty much at set point right now. I'm pretty much at my 145 set point. But now I have to check my sensitivity and my dead band. And this is where, somebody brought up about how the valve's not moving. They get it to move one way and then it kind of just hangs up there for a while. And it could be because the dead band is set too wide. So the next step would be we got to check our dead band. So they'll tell you to turn the adjustment screw one way until we get a reaction from the gauges. Note the position where your wrench is at. Now, we want to go back the other way. Oh, I'm really close on it. I'm going to go out a little bit more so it's a little bit more obvious. So, turn it one way. Note the position. Turn it the other way. Now you can see how far I had to turn that to get that one through. That's another important thing to remember on these, is each spring has a known change of set point per revolution. On the one Rob is working on, it's a 1000 with the yellow spring. Each turn of that screw will change your set point 143 PSI. So a little bit of change on that screw could change your pressure. You do a quarter turn, you got 35, 40 PSI change in set point. So you can see, like if I go that way, and I'm turning my screw, I gotta go all the way that way before I get my opposite reaction. So I could tell I'm way off on my dead band because again, I think even on this model here, it's like a 50 pound per revolution. So I know I'm quarter of a turn off. So what you're gonna do is note the one part, note the other part, put it in the middle of those 2 points. And then you're gonna take your sensitivity drum, and this is where it's gonna be very important that you have access to our exhaust. So if you rebuilt this and you put it back in, don't put that exhaust tubing back on because we're gonna have to monitor the exhaust on this. So we just now want to take it, there is no bleed coming from here. We want to set this, I'm going to turn the sensitivity drum, and general rule of thumb is turning that sensitivity drum to the right will cause me to bleed gas. Turning it to the left will cause me to not bleed gas. So I have no bleed. I want to get this so it just starts to bleed gas. So if it's a loud station and you got noise in there, you're going to want to be able to put your finger over it so you can feel that.
Flow meter on it?
You can. We're just
saying, like,
looking.
if you're at a station that's ripping, like
Yeah, usually you could just, and you'll be welcome to come up here. I put my finger over the hole.
Yeah.
As soon as I turn that and start getting it to the point where you'll feel that pressure. So I could feel a lot of pressure.
That's not gonna work with Gary.
So I just back it off until he. I just hold your finger over it, you'll feel that pressure build up because you don't need a lot of bleed, just a little bit of bleed. So once you do that, you now have to go back and repeat the process. You're gonna go one way, go the other way, and it should be a little bit less than the last time. Go in between. Get it so it just bleeds one way, the other way. And then you're just going to keep repeating that process until a little turn one way, a little turn the other way causes you to have that change in your gauges. And then you are at factory set point. That is factory set point. You'll then you'll run your pressure up because you're going to want to test this. You'll run your pressure up and run your sense pressure down. So if I decrease this a little bit, I should see a change in my gauges as I bleed off my sense pressure. And I do. And there is a formula in the book where they will say you should have, you know, if you change your set point by this much, you should have a certain differential on there to know that you're working correctly. Now, when people are setting these or when they are testing these, especially if you're not doing it live, what you'll do a lot is they'll change your set point pressure, they'll isolate their sense line, put a false sense of pressure on, and they start adjusting the pressure here to test this yearly. When you hear that bleeding is not when you are at set point. You are at set point when you're not, your gauges are balanced and you have pretty much that tiny little bubble of bleed. So even as people are, you know, as you approach set point, especially like you'll notice it on a monitor valve, because monitor valve is wide open. There's no bleed. If you have a monitor valve set at 800, you'll start, as you approach that 800, maybe when you're at like 790, maybe even 775, especially on the CH, you're gonna hear that start to bleed. That's not set point. That's it getting close to set point and getting it close to moving the valve. Because especially on a monitor valve, it doesn't wait until you hit 800 pounds or 805 to start moving, because the valve, you have 100 pounds, 125 pounds on the top of your cylinder and nothing on the bottom. To get it to move that cylinder, it has to bleed off that 125 pounds, add gas to the other side of the cylinder. You're gonna get 125, start bleeding that down, you're adding pressure. When you get about halfway, 65, you're still not moving anywhere because you got equal pressure. It's not until you do that flip-flop of pressure. So you have to bleed all that off, add gas there, and then the valve will finally start to move. So as I come back up to set point, I should get it to stop bleeding again. And if I go over set point, you can see my gauges go in the opposite directions. The way I like to test this, especially if I'm doing a new commissioning on a new valve, the way I like to test it is I'll do it live. Make sure your valve is isolated, your block valves are closed, because you want to see the valve move. So I'll put a low sense pressure in, make sure that my valve moves open. Put a high sense pressure in, make sure my valve moves closed. And then, while it's traveling, I should be able to put my sense pressure to the set point. So in this case, if it's 185 pounds, if that valve is traveling one direction, and I now change my sense pressure to 185, no matter where I'm at, my valve should stop moving because I'm at set point. It shouldn't be moving anywhere because that's set point. So that's a good way to test it, to make sure that you know this is working correctly. So sensitivity, very, just a little tiny, factory calls it a 10-second bubble. So if you were to put soap on here, you should see it bubble just slowly building, and last at least 10 seconds. If it pops too quick, then you have the sensitivity a little bit too tight, you can turn it back a little bit. If it doesn't build, or if it builds really, really slow, you're a little bit too loose, just add a little bit to it. But that is factory set point. A lot of times, and I get it an awful lot of times, is they say, well, I want it set for 185, but I want it closed at 190. That's not how pilots work. They are regulating pilots. They're going to maintain the pressure. So if I set this for 185, it's going to maintain 185. If I go to 187, it's not going to say, well, I'm at 187, let me hurry up and close this valve. You're so close to set point, it will start bleeding off that gas and very slowly moving that valve to the closed position. But it's not going to do it fast. And when you're doing it with nitrogen, you're kind of keeping that same pressure on there. I always tell guys, this will close. We could go to lunch and it'll probably still be closing by the time we get back because it's so close to set point. But you'll see, like, if I just add a little bit of pressure to it, see if I go slow, the gauges will kind of just move slowly. But if I go fast, and I really drop that, you could see how fast they pick up. So the closer you are to set point, the slower it's going to go. The faster, the further away you are from set point, it will definitely speed up and go a lot faster. There is a limit to how fast the valve will move, because we do have orifices in here. We have the balance valves or the orifice. It can only pass through so much, so it's only so fast the valve can move. That's when you'll get into the boosters if you need it to go even faster. But the factory will give a time on this. There'll be a spec sheet that comes with it. They'll say full open and full close in this amount of time. So there is limits to how fast you can. Any questions? The CH